Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has compared the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Adolf Hitler, likening Israel's assault on Gaza to Nazi Germany's killing of Jews. In his remarks at an award ceremony in the Turkish capital Ankara, President Erdogan asked what difference there was between Mr. Netanyahu and Adolf Hitler. Continuing with his condemnation of the war in Gaza, Mr. Erdogan said Prime Minister Netanyahu is richer than Hitler and gets the support from the West and the United States. But according to him, Mr. Netanyahu uses the support to aggravate the killings of Gazans. Prime Minister Netanyahu later responded by pointing to Turkey's own history of alleged rights abuses. Well, joining me now via Zoom from Belgium for an analysis of the war is a global affairs analyst, Collins Onweke. Thank you for joining us on the program. Well, let's begin by getting your reactions. I mean, you have President Erdogan comparing Netanyahu to Hitler. Do you agree with him?
Thank you, Ambassador, for having me. Well, I want to think that the sort of sentiments that Erdogan of Turkey expressed is something that quite a number of progressive leaders. I mean, it's not like I'm counting him as one of them, but you have progressive leaders, but you also have pro Palestine leaders. So those on both fronts, the progressive leaders and also the pro-Palestinian groups, those are the sort of sentiments they actually nurse privately and ever willing and ready to air such sentiments in closed doors. Now, that Erdogan decided to speak out is not surprising because, he has been very much pro-Palestine. Yes, indeed, there are quite a lot of unnecessary and uncalled for killing going on in Gaza. People have seen that indeed the level of attack, the level of mayhem that is being unleashed on Gaza is actually disproportionate to the situation that we have at hand. And so I believe those were the sort of things that prompted the sentiments that he expressed. I believe that ultimately this is a wake-up call for those who have not been upfront in calling Netanyahu out to actually take a retreat and, begin to see peace return.
Indeed, Mr. Onweke, and as it is, it's quite disturbing because safe spaces don't seem to be safe any longer. You have Israeli forces penetrating the central and even the southern part of Gaza, which is supposed to be safe from the north. I mean, what do you think can be done to de-escalate tensions in the Gaza Strip?
First and foremost, I believe that Israeli allies, across the world have got to now come out. They have done what people could consider to be reasonable by unequivocally standing, on the side of Israel when Hamas actually carried out, the attack on the 7th of October. I believe that most of the Western leaders, and internationally, that, true support behind Israel did that as a way of, building some sort of goodwill. So that when we ever come to the point where we are now, which is a disproportionate response, that they can draw on that goodwill that they have created with Israel to say, come on, guys, let's take a break here and to the path of peace. Unfortunately, they are dealing with an astute, uncompromising leader in Netanyahu, who is ready at any point to throw even his allies under the bus. And that is essentially what he's doing. So they've got to step up. They've got to, America, for instance, or as especially, has got to, continue to exercise the pressure, both privately but also publicly through UN resolutions that they should support ceasefire, total ceasefire. And so on the public front, they should continue to speak out against Netanyahu personally and Israel in general, but also privately, they should continue to maintain the diplomatic line of communication to get him to stop this mayhem.
But Mr. Nweke, you have just described really Mr. Netanyahu and his ability to actually throw even his allies under the bus, I mean, when it comes to certain situations. So do you think he would actually listen to the voice of reason, considering the declaration he made at the start of the war that he's out to defend his people, and the Israeli Defense Forces have continued to say that they would go any length, I mean, to fight whoever is standing in their way?
Well, those are tough talks that people should be ready when it comes to the crunch to actually step away from. You would notice, Abosede, that some of his strongest supporters at the beginning of this whole episode, people like Emmanuel Macron of France, who actually traveled to the region, quite apart from sending envoys and all of that, have come out now to say, listen, it is unrealistic in the first place to ever imagine that you will be able to eliminate Hamas. Hamas is not a physical structure. Hamas does not live in one or two individuals who happen to be their leaders at this time. Hamas and what they stand for is an ideology. And so ideology is not something you eliminate just like that. You have to at least pay some attention to this. So I believe that more and more leaders beginning to realize that, the objective of Netanyahu in the first place of eliminating Hamas is, it's not feasible. It is untenable. It's not going to happen now. It's not ever going to happen. So the realization of that is the beginning of a new strategy to deal with all of this. So more people speaking out and more pressure being exercised on Netanyahu. Now, whether he listens or not is entirely up to him. But in the end, I believe that he will be concerned about being isolated by his friends, his foes, and his allies.
Indeed, and in the midst of this all, children, women are bearing the brunt. I mean, it's quite devastating. At the start of the war, we're hearing that about 50,000 pregnant women were to give birth within the next month. And, just imagine the case, the situation, the condition under which these children are being brought forth. I mean, just see those images of newborn babies and in incubators being evacuated from hospitals because the necessary care isn't available. Just how worried, how disturbed are you about this trend?
Very, very worried, very, very disturbed. And I must tell you, Abosede, Netanyahu, seeing those images, appears to be smiling. Because when he says he wants to eliminate Hamas, essentially what he's telling us is that those 50,000 women, pregnant women who were meant to bring new life, on earth, he sees those unborn kids as potential Hamas activists. And so his goal is kill those women with their pregnancies so that they don't even see the face of the world. This is atrocious, to say the least. Now, it is worrying, and I think there are signs that the rest of the world, his strongest allies, are beginning to come to that realization. And like I said earlier, and we'll continue to repeat about today, the only way to get him to comply willy-nilly is step up the pressure.
All right, then. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. And, with the concerns that it might just spread, across the region with the strikes coming from Hezbollah, from the Lebanon side, I mean, it's really just disturbing what the future could hold. But perhaps we'll just have to stay optimistic. Collins Nweke is a global affairs analyst. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on World Now.